Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm gonna do a quick recording here talking about a little piece that I made. Um, Basically, it is an adapter. I have a failed print here of it, and I'll show it in a second. Actually, I could show it now. There's no reason not to. It is an adapter. This is the original one here. This is the one I had initially modeled up, but not the final one. And basically, what it does is it allows a respirator to connect to a mask, and they're using this instead of ventilators in some cases where they can, because it's non-invasive. It doesn't actually go inside someone's body, so this can provide people with more comfort while still getting the care they need currently. So I do have a thread on Twitter about this. Like I said, this is the original part. I'll show it clicking into the mask in a second. The goal is to recreate this part functionally, minus that port on the top. That was unnecessary, I was told. And to get it to a point where it could be printed, in case or when these start being hard to get. They're, from what I'm told, they're getting hard to get. They're not impossible to get right now, but it's something that if they don't have, that may mean they have to turn people away, and that's not a good thing. So, um, like I said, I made this Twitter thread. This was the initial first print, which is this right here in my hand. And one of the biggest problems, and if I shift over here, one of the biggest problems I was having is, this is the final version, by the way. I don't want to do that. These clips right here. If you look at this, where this interlocks with the mask, you can see those clips hold it in, and it swivels on those clips. And I was having a big issue with that. Initially I had made this a friction fit with that mask, which they were okay with. They were happy with that, and the hooks were there, the claps, the whatever you want to call them, were there, but they would not do great. They would break off very easily, and part of that was due to me having that purple PLA. It was very old, and it's absorbed a lot of moisture, so it's very brittle. So while it still prints, it functionally doesn't work quite as well. And the secondary reason why is I was printing it in, let's see, printing it in this orientation here. So I was printing it like this, where I had some supports here, some supports here directly trying to support this. I specifically did not put supports in here. All these angles should be good enough to do it without supports. If this bottom is supported here, which I had underneath, so I didn't have to carve out any area underneath and clean it out and all that. And so what ended up happening with that is, because of the way the 3D printer prints, where it does layers, either left or right or up or down, depending on how you print it, it actually made this quite a bit weaker. So you would have, like where this line is, every single layer would be a line like that, would be a weakness, because that's a point where plastic is not, it's only melted together, you know what I mean? So it's not quite strong. So in the end, what I ended up doing is printing in this orientation here. And that means that vertically up and down right here, it's brittle horizontal like this, but the clasps, whatever they want to call them, they don't ever flex up and down like that. They flex in and out like this. And so because all of the layers were horizontal like this, one layer could flex and it wouldn't try and separate layers. So we ended up printing it like this, which required supports underneath here, underneath here, underneath here, and some supports to support this area right here, which would be inside of this cavity. But all the way down this circular chamber was empty, because this curve it could do with some minimal supports underneath. This curve it didn't need any supports for. And of course, this builds straight up, so it didn't need anything. So that was great. And instead of using old saturated PLA, we ended up using ABS, which is less brittle, obviously because it's not saturated with liquid, but in general, it's a little bit less brittle, a little bit tougher. And we were able to print on a industrial machine that has supports that can be you put it in a bath and they will melt the supports away. So we didn't have to break the supports off, which means we didn't have to, you can design it in such a way where the supports, if you needed to, could be inside of it or could be in this area here, and you wouldn't have to really get in there and clean it out very carefully. This bath would do it. So I kind of am new to Fusion 360. I really only used it once or twice before here, which I've shown on stream before, but I've been trying to make use of this timeline here, which is not something I've ever done before. Where at one point this inner diameter right here needed to be revised, and so instead of redoing the whole thing, I could step back in time all the way down to here, to here, and I could redefine. Basically, I can go in here and do edit, and I could redefine this diameter, and on the fly it would change it. So I could redo that, and that changed this, but it didn't change because it was made afterward in the timeline. It didn't change really this head. It changed this interface in here, but because of the way it's designed, that isn't really an issue, unless you go and do something crazy like, make this 300 millimeters or something. Even then, look at that. Oh wait, I can't do that apparently. I went too far. If I did 50, and yeah, it'll take 50. So there is a limit to what it will do if I do okay. Yeah, you can see this front area was not done. So while it still connects via that, it threw an error about certain things. So, but yeah, I kind of wanted to step through the timeline. There are some errors. This sketch right here never really got used for anything. This was initially one of our, if you look at the end piece, it's this. It probably has to do something with that. Maybe the plane doesn't exist, but it's still in the correct position because it didn't change. So there are some mistakes that are not perfect. So this isn't really made to be a guide. It's just more of a little bit of a detail here. So initially what we started out with is a plane, as you do in Fusion 360. So if I go and edit that sketch on the plane, you can see I had laid out the length. I did 35 millimeters from this point here, which is also part of this curve. Basically just looking for a 90-degree angle. And so once that was done, we used the create, I think it was pipe. Yes, pipe. And so if we do the create pipe, we can specify on that create pipe what kind of diameter we want and how thick we want this pipe to be. 2 millimeters was chosen. Just I had the original and I measured it and it was about 2 millimeters, so I just stuck with it. The important part for this piece is this inside diameter here, because that is what actually had to interface with something. So, when I change this selection size here, if I went down to 6 millimeters, you can see that internal diameter changes, but the external doesn't. That thickness is still 2 millimeters. So, that inside piece is really the most important part of this. Next, what I did was, let's see, extrude. So I changed the length on this. It doesn't look like I actually changed it all that much. It's possible that that part was not used. Beats me. And then I put a fillet on the edge here, just to make it a little bit easier to insert the mating part to this. So if we remove that, if I go back in time, you can see it's just a flat edge. It just makes it a little bit easier if it's self-correcting. Next, I shortened this end. Initially, I had it much longer. You can see in this one, or maybe some of the videos I had, this length here was quite a bit longer. But we determined that it did not need to be that long, as well as it did not need. Oh, it would print faster. we'd be able to print a lot faster if it was shorter. So we trimmed off, and this as well. This was trimmed as well. That probably was what one of these extrudes was. It was a negative extrude. Oh, right. So initially this was the length, and I had a positive extrusion here. So if I do edit, I have a positive extrusion, but it turned out that I didn't need that by the same amount that I had previously positively extruded. So I went back to 0, and it ended up being exactly where it was. That was the issue. This negative extrude just shortened the length of the top. And then what I did was I created a sketch along this plane right here, which allowed me to specify some things on here. And so if I go the next one, let's see, this is, I made an offset plane. So this sketch actually didn't get used, which is why nothing highlighted. This was a sketch that I had done by mistake. So in fact, if I do delete, that should, if I'm not editing it, that shouldn't change anything. No, it didn't. So I made an offset plane, basically on this face, so I can draw on this face here, and you can see what I drew. The outside lip here, which became, I don't have a really good picture of that. Let's see. No, I don't. It became this. Ooh. Let's see. It became this rim right here. It has a little bit of a fillet on it to help it seat properly against the mask itself, right along this edge right here. It just makes it a little less abrupt, more of a wedge than a flat piece. This is the actual extrusion that comes forward, and then this is the internal piece that actually interfaces with this on the inside. You can see it's actually not quite the same size, but that's okay. So once we extruded that centerpiece, so that is the actual mating, this face right here actually touches the inside of the mask. From there, I extruded, let's see, the inside piece, this piece right here, to help it mate up with this. And again, that wasn't exactly even, and if I put my hand in there, I can just barely feel it on this model. It's close enough that no one would ever know, A, and B. As long as it's structurally sound, that kind of won't really impede airflow all that much, so that's not a problem. And then finally, you can see this right here. I extruded this forward, basically this face forward, to serve as that filleted kind of wedge shape. And the next thing I did was actually put that fillet on there. You can see up here. It just helps center it basically, which is nice as well when you go to plug it in, go to connect them. It helps self-center it so that the clasps on either side are not too far off to the left or right, which they help center it as well, but that just helps you prevent you kind of jamming it in and maybe breaking the clip a little bit. So I made another offset plane. You can see it's on the inside. And what did I add there? Let's see. So I made an offset plane a little bit further back. I don't know why. Yeah, I know why I did it this way. I made it back here, and I made these squares here, and those were the start of the actual clasps that I ended up with. I ended up making them really far back, and I moved them forward, and you'll see that in a bit. So here's the initial shape and position of the clasp. This is a little bit odd because I don't know how to use Fusion 360 very well, so I kind of did it in a way that worked, but maybe wouldn't be the way that you would want to do it. And from there, I made another offset plane on this face right here. This face right here. And then from there, I drew a sketch on there. So if I edit the sketch, I drew this square right here, which is going to be the piece that actually overhangs. And then next, I extruded that out. So there's a piece there. I don't know why. Oh, I know why. Because if we look at this sketch, I only extruded this piece right here. That's selected in blue. I didn't extrude the whole thing, which is not a problem because I ended up coming in and I finished the sketch. I ended up coming in and just joining the two and making it one big thing. It's just a little bit of a roundabout way to get there. Next, I made a fillet. Yes, fillet. On that edge there, just to make it smooth. Again, that mask, the part of the mask is ends up sitting right here. So this actually helps it push that upward instead of it just being flat and potentially breaking off this underside. It actually helps flex that out a little bit. Next, I made another sketch. Let's see. Looks like I made it on the underside of the upper side of this right here. This right there. You can see I made that sketch right there essentially. And what I did then is I trimmed off some of the front just to make it a little less bulky. And then from there, I made another offset plane on the underside right here. That's selected. And I pulled that, let's see, I pulled that down to the actual device. If I go into edit feature, you can see the to object means it'll start there and it'll go until it hits an object. And that allowed me to have that exact curve on there instead of previously it intersected and went inside. And if I didn't do it right, it would pop through the bottom and you would have all sorts of errors saying, oh, it's intersecting with itself and all that. So that helped out a lot. Next, I moved this top piece up a little bit. If I pop back, you can see exactly what I did. It was too close. So this allows it to, in fact, I thought I had moved it closer. So I guess maybe after moving it closer, I determined that it was not correct. And then from there we did, what is this? Oh, I combined some pieces. So there were two pieces that were not combined that I combined. For some reason I was getting some interesting little like plates on here. Again, an artifact of the way I'm doing this. I didn't really do it quite right. So, that was just an artifact of that. I trimmed this top down a little bit so it is not as thick. You can see there, just to make it a little bit thinner, maybe flex a little bit more. I connected the two. I joined those two together, and then I think I joined those. No, I trimmed it off. And so, yeah, you can see these plates now like that. I'm getting those. I believe I tried to get rid of them in the future, but before that, I connected all these together. If I go back, I made them all one piece. And then I put a fillet on there just to the front and back, just to make it, again, you get this area to be thin but strong and not to have quite so right angles, so that, if it flexes on that curve, it's a little bit stronger in the flex than it is if it's just straight up a square. This is that offset, that sketch that I think doesn't have a home. It was a little nub right here that I end up extruding out. Oh, no, there's something else. What is this? Oh yeah, it's this. The start of that gets extruded. And then I put a fillet on the front there just to make that a little bit nicer looking. That's pure aesthetics, really. What is this? The sweep. So this right here, like you saw how it started as a little piece right there, and then it gets swept following this arc right here. This arc that's in blue or black if I'm over it. It follows it up and over. This was more just to give it a little bit more strength. I don't know if I needed it. It ended up working with it, so I didn't really bother taking it out since it worked so well. You can see these next two are me deleting, I think, those two squares. Yeah, so you can see these two squares. I tried to delete them. And then I put another fillet in. Let's see where that is. Right there, just to make that a little bit nicer looking. And then finally, I did a revolve. I forget what they call it. What is this? Oh boy. Modify. Create pattern. Circular pattern. That's what I did. And so by making that circular pattern, it copied that there. And in fact, if I go in here and I do edit feature, I can turn up the number of those and they should always find themselves in the correct spot. So if for some reason they wanted 4 of those, I could just easily add more clips. If they wanted 20 of them, it wouldn't really print very well, but I could put in 20 of them and it would look like this and it wouldn't attach to anything because it wouldn't flex like that. it also would cause the slicer probably to die because that is a lot of intersections with itself. But basically, I instead of just copy and pasting it or rebuilding it on the other side of the same specs, this allows you to easily change things up. And if I step back in the timeline, I don't have to change it in 2 spots. I can change whatever I need right here, and then when it gets patterned around, circular patterned around, it just changes on all of them. It just reflects along this blue axis in there. You can see the line, which is our one of our 3 initial axes. So I know it's always centered on this piece, which is the center of the pipe. And so it just goes. If I tell it to do 502 of them, it'll crash the program. And yeah, that's really all there is to it. That's how it looks at the end of the day. This printed up fine. I have this picture in here of what it looks like. I just tried to rotate it. I can't rotate a picture, but you can see those clips here and there. This is the underside where it was held up with supports. So in that picture, it is looking like this, basically, like that, more or less. Yeah, just about a little bit less of a, just about like that. But it was version 7, as you can see here. I had a 7A and a 7B as well. 7A was exactly the same. It's just this inside diameter. I had gone into here, and instead of it being 26.5, it was 26.25, which is just a tiny bit smaller. And then as well, I had a version that was 26.75, which was a little bit bigger than 7. And that allowed us to try and get this plastic piece on the bottom here press fit properly. It turns out 7 was right on the money. I was very happy about that because someone had said, "Oh, let's print up a few just in case that one doesn't work." And I was like, "Okay, that's fair." But I had kind of had a gut feeling that this was going to be what it was, and the 7 version was 0.5 millimeter larger than the 6 version, so I kind of knew it was going to be very close, if not perfectly close. So, but that's kind of it. I'm happy with it. I'm glad that there's a possibility of it being put to use if people need it. Obviously, the best case scenario is that people don't need it, and they are just happy and healthy. But if someone does need it, I would rather them, if they can, go on this device instead of being intubated. I had some family who was on and off intubation for 8 or so months last year before passing away, and from what I heard, it is not a happy experience. So if this can help somebody not have to suffer through that, then I think that's worth the time I put into it. So that's about it. I just wanted to get this on video, on paper. Even if it's just for me to look at later and say, "Oh, that's how I did that," when I go and do my next project. It's just good to know. So if you do have any questions, I am not a Fusion 360 expert. I would recommend looking up some tutorials, but I will try and help where I can if you are inclined to ask. And yeah, I think that's it. Thank you guys for watching this quick little video here. It's a quick 24-minute video. And I hope that maybe you learned something. I know I learned something. Like I said, I didn't really go to a lot of Fusion 360 beforehand, so this is all a learning process for me. Anyway, thank you very much.
Hey, thanks for making it all the way to the end of this video. I know that some of the VODs can get a little bit long, so I do appreciate you sticking around. I'd like to ask real quick, if you have a friend or someone close to you who you think would like a clip or a portion or even the whole stream, please feel free to reach out to them and share this with them. I'm always looking for more respectful people to come hang out and have some fun. If you've already done that or want to help me out some other way, feel free to check out the video description for some other ways you can help support me. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.